about no matter what else you didn't see in Paris. So each day you spend doing science, okay, is full and interesting and has its local successes, what more do you want? Okay? You don't want immortality, do you? I mean, you certainly, and some people think they do, you certainly don't really want to know how it's all going to come out. That's just a question you shouldn't ask. It does relate to the issue that 20 years from now, Saul will be wrong. I'll be over on one side of history. I don't now, I think I did in my youth for a while, I don't now have any notions at all about, or any care at all about whether I'm there for the ages. But by now, of course, this project of mine is me, and so I don't have to justify it in this project of that scientific goal. That's just me.
Do you consider what you do to be computer science?
I consider that I have done a hell of a lot of computer science. Is that a good enough answer for you? And one says computer science does not usually take itself as understanding the nature of the mind. Maybe it should, but it doesn't. Okay. And there's actually lots of reasons for that, because there's that whole technology to build. My goal is therefore not computer science, just like my goal is not AI. That doesn't keep me from being in a computer science department, from writing textbooks on computers, even if they're all diversions. And I certainly have enough both objectivity and immodesty to look at the work on computer structures and saying, that was good computer science, that makes real contributions to the area of computer architectures and so forth. And I'm glad Gordon, seduced me into that, and I'm glad I got away and got back to the other thing. I think that's the way I got to look at my life. You can't treat the diversions as if they aren't worthwhile. If that's going to happen to you, you're in deep trouble. So part of this is a glorification of diversion.
You talked about becoming a professional psychologist and now becoming a professional linguist in terms of acquiring or not acquiring the style of argument. That sounded like a slightly facetious definition, but is there a more substantial?
Well, the issue of the style of argument is really meant to indicate that there really are levels of professionalism in terms of how deeply you understand the field in the field's own terms, so that you can deal with the problems of the field from the point of view of that field. And this was, in fact, just a kind of a fun way of sort of characterizing different fields. I'm sure I could have done it with respect to linguistics if I'd been prepared to make the investment. And somehow it didn't seem, for reasons that are actually unclear to me, didn't seem pertinent enough, whereas I did make the investment, and I made very large investments in learning cognitive psychology and understanding it. And learning it, of course, is just not reading it. It is, in fact, operating within it. It is using it. It is understanding the literature. It is, in fact, learning to talk. That's just an indicator.
Last question. Martha, you do it.
I wanted to ask you about another model that sounds a little bit like the Reichert model, a project every 5 years that contributes to some central question. Does that evolve into the
Sure. I'm trying to think about, let's see. It doesn't fit either of my examples, but it's a perfectly good example. What I remember of Reichert was, he didn't have that model. He really was totally free at each boundary to look around for what was the next thing. And his rationale for that was, in 5 years, the sciences moved. So, okay. Now, I can't think of a good example. Maybe you're a good example. I don't know. Can't think of a good example. Gordon Bell in my thing isn't a good example because he doesn't actually select out projects in that same kind of focused, multiple trial, I've got to do this and then I've got to do this in order to finally get deep enough to make the contribution.
So do you see your project sort of spiraling towards central?
No such luck.
Fixed radius around.
Just sort of scrabble up the hill. So in fact, and Kurt is like this too. I don't know whether Herb is doing that part, but Herb is like this too. Which you get up every morning and you sort of say, what's the next thing to do on this total scientific project, and you go off and do that. And you ignore what you said in the proposals and you just totally ignore it, and you say, now is the time we should implement Soaring C. And you never told anyone you were going to spend a third of your resources implementing Soaring C, but that turns out to be the thing to do, so you go do that. And so you just sort of play that one in real random order, and hope that the funding people never catch up with you.
Thank you, Alan.
Right.